Running commentary. We are exploring listening to albums. It is a lost art form. We took an hour out of our day. We switched off the phones. We switched off the computers. We did not answer the door. We sat down and we listened to the artist's vision and concept. Rush. Permanent Waves. I'm going to put a paragraph in here to again explain that I have not listened to Rush's music before. This is the one and only album I've heard by them. The first listen annoyed the crap out of me, and I threw a hissy fit and said I didn't want to review it. Initial impressions were that it reminded me of Styx. I could hear parallels to Queen, but its mystical fairy tale fantasy singing as a medieval affected knave were hugely off-putting. As I took these set of notes on the second listen, it wasn't quite so bothersome. I liked the sci-fi synths. Their style had taken some getting used to. My director picked this one, the bastard. He said, "Just blame it all on me." Being not more anonymous said that I should look at the Rush documentary and read the lyrics. I know it's hard to believe that someone like me has friends, but I do. And that was the advice they gave. So let's get on to the tracks of Rush Permanent Waves. Now, Rush fans will already know this, but Rush's tracks are generally on the longer side. They go on and forever and ever as people warm up on guitars and these huge, progressive rock boulders are built by this band who are progressive rock juggernauts. But this was, as an album, a departure from that, really. They had started to try and make, I don't know if they decided to try and make more radio-friendly songs, but I guess if you're a band, you kind of need to get radio play, especially back in that day and age when, how else was anyone going to find you? I mean, clearly they were touring and they had an audience, but this was a considerable departure in the style of music they were making, and the single for that really leads that off is The Spirit of Radio. It reminds me at times of Rainbow's Since You've Been Gone. The song reached number 13 in the UK, making it their biggest single there to date. There's a reggae break towards the end of the song which I fail to see the relevance of. What made these songs different was the Rush were enjoying real radio play for the first time. Invisible airwaves crackle with life. Let's also mention that the 7-inch edit was a hit in the UK, was only 3 minutes long, as opposed to this 5-minute stretch on the album. There is a possibility that the title was inspired by the slogan of Toronto radio station CFNY-FM. The song was inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. Another lyric from the song is "One likes to believe in the freedom of music, but glittering prizes and endless compromises shatter the illusion of integrity." I like this pre-everything counts sensibility in the words of the song. It's not a bad song. It's not quite my cup of tea, but the lyrical content goes a long way in making me hold back in slagging it off the way I was going to. Freewill. This is a decent follow-up to Spirit. Again, though, sonically, that string part puts me in mind of the closing section of Gary Numan's Cars. The guitar solo midway is impressive. Geddy Lee has made it clear that he uses the highest frequency of his voice on the track, and it's definitely successful in achieving awe from the listener. The song deals with free will as a choice rather than as a gift. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. I have made a concerted effort here not to naysay this record into the ground and have gone deeper than usual in trying to get a handle on where the band are coming from, even stopping in at rush.com to check out the lyrical content. Jacob's Ladder. Now this song is a whole different kettle of fish. This is where I think there is undeniable merit in the band's work. With this composition, the scene is set, however fantastically, and you can feel yourself climbing Jacob's Ladder, a biblical story, until you reach the spaceships and are met by the alien aircraft. All at once the clouds are parted, light streams down in bright unbroken dreams. My initial reluctance towards the work is that it put me in mind of Styx's overblown commercial successes. But I liked this song from the get-go, and it really is a masterpiece on this body of work. And then you look at the album sleeve, and now you think to yourself, oh, maybe they are attempting to show an alien war with the cover or aftermath. You know, Jacob's Ladder captures the imagination, and the complex assemblance and performance of the work drastically alters how I feel about the album and the band as a whole. Last little note on why I like it. It doesn't remind me of anything else. Entre Nous, which is French for Between Us. I love the searing synths on the intro. Remember, the album was recorded in Quebec, so that accounts for the French title. The verses drive along nicely. We are islands to each other, building hopeful bridges on a troubled sea. There are times here when the vocalist's tone is reminiscent of Elton John. That's not a bad thing, but it does once more remind me that regularly throughout this album, Rush remind me of other people. Again, this isn't half bad. Different strings. The lyrics here are by Geddy Lee, which is different. This has all the trademarks of what you'd expect from a more emotionally driven track by a rock band from the late 70s, early 80s. Making arrows out of pointed words is my favorite lyric. Natural Science is a 9-minute plus track split into 3 titles. Tide Pools is the first. Complete with the sound of water and seagulls, each microcosmic planet a complete society. Love it. Again, it sparks the imagination of the listener, thinking of all the possibilities these tide pools could contain. Hyperspace is the second, far more guitar-driven. This section kind of passes me by a little bit. There's a refrain which you hear interspersed throughout the 3 sections, wheels within wheels in a spiral array, a pattern so grand and complex. This resonates with me, as I've just seen a documentary highlighting the constant occurrence of pi in our natural world. A friend of mine mentioned that Rush were big with valedictorians and nerdy physics types, and these last set of tracks under Natural Science certainly seem to corroborate that observation. Into the last with the title track Permanent Waves, art as expression, not as market campaigns. Love the lyrics, agree with them. The drums pop beautifully at the end of the track, and you hear the waves crashing up on shore. I've got to tell you, I didn't want to like this album. But the more I listened and read the lyrics, the more I realized that Permanent Waves by Rush was a clever piece of work, which if I was to sit here and give it a bad mark or a panning, I'd be making myself look as dumb as a box of rocks. So, running commentary, album reviews, final mark for Rush's Permanent Waves, 69%.